right, so here are numbers 4, 5, and 6 from the review. These were all kind of the more basic versions of the trig stuff, especially 4 and 5. So I'm just going to go through those very briefly. Remember our phrase, SOHCAHTOA, and you should watch through the whole thing just to make sure you didn't miss something. So if I look at this, my angle is 60 degrees. Opposite from 60 is this side. Adjacent is here, and then across from the right angle is my hypotenuse. So make sure you're still writing those things down. You're using the adjacent and the hypotenuse side. If you check your SOHCAHTOA, A and H make ka, which is cosine. So angle always goes next to the trig, so it's cosine of 60, and it equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So the adjacent side is 3, the hypotenuse is m. So this is the start to your whole equation, so make sure you actually set that up correctly. You know you're using regular trig, not inverse, because you're solving for a side. So that means I got to put this over 1, and then we're going to be cross multiplying. Okay, let's get our green in there. So m times cosine 60 is going to stay like that. 3 times 1 goes on the other side of the equal sign. Notice there's no more fraction. That's what cross multiplying does. My goal is to get m by itself. If it's m times cosine 60, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. You have to take cosine and 60 together. It's not just one or the other. That crosses off there. If you plug in 3 divided by cosine 60 on your calculator, you should get 6. It's a nice even number this time. Okay, if you got this and didn't get it plugged in right, make sure to raise your hand and ask for help so you know how to use your calculator properly. Okay, very similar start down here. Our angle is what we're looking for this time. This is still the opposite, this is the adjacent, and this is the hypotenuse. So again, check and make sure that you actually labeled it correctly. Otherwise, that could have been the mistake that you made. We're using opposite and hypotenuse. There's nothing on the adjacent side, so I can't use that. So let's check up here. That means opposite hypotenuse fits our SO, S-O-H, that stands for sine. I don't know my angle, so I'm going to put a little question mark next to the sine. If you put x, that's fine. But it equals 14 over 44. Now think back, remember, what do we use if I want to get rid of sine? Okay, just like opposite of multiplication is division, the opposite of sine is inverse sine. So really what we're doing is we're taking inverse of both sides. That's where you have to hit the shift or the second button on your calculator. Okay, what happens over here is those cross out, which means our question mark is equal to whatever inverse sine of 14 divided by 44 is. If you have that and you type it in correctly, you should get 18.55. Okay, now here's the thing. You're rounding to the nearest degree. Some of you did not know how to round properly. You need to be able to do that, guys. Okay, if I'm rounding to the nearest degree, it's either 18 or 19. Well, look at the 5 here. If the number next to it is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, you round up. If it's 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, you would round down. Since it's 5, we're going to round up. So that means you should have rounded up to 19. So if you put 18, you would have gotten that marked wrong. You need to be able to round properly. Okay, don't rush through it after you do so much good work. Okay, last one I'm going to do in this video is this one down here. We've got a word problem. Robbie is waiting for his friends to arrive at his beach house. He sees a boat in the water 120 feet from the base or the bottom of the pier. If the boat has a 57-degree angle of elevation to the top of the pier, how high is Robbie above the water? You had to draw a diagram to get full credit. So here's the pier that Robbie is standing on. It's above the water. There's our water. The boat's somewhere off here that he's looking at. Okay, it's a really bad triangle, but it's a triangle. Okay, and then this would kind of be our right angle down here. So now we got to fill in our blanks here. I'm going to redraw the triangle just a little bit. Your angle of elevation, remember that has to go with a horizontal line. The only horizontal line is right here. So you have to have angle of elevation with that. It's going to be right here. It's always with a horizontal line. So that part's filled in. Now the 120 feet seem to throw a couple people off. And by the way, let's check our rubric down here. One of the points is just for correctly labeling the angle of elevation, so I did that. 1 point for correctly placing 120 in the diagram. Okay, well the boat in the water is 120 feet from the base. Base means bottom of the pier. Well, the bottom of the pier is right here, down at the bottom part, and the boat is stretching across here. That means that this should have been labeled as the 120. Okay, some of you lost points just because you didn't label that properly. We're looking for how high is Robbie above the water, which means this pier height is X. Okay, so that's how you should have set it up. I'm going to redraw it over here a little bit cleaner. There's X, there's 57. Okay, now I can start to do my labels. Here's opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Nothing on the hypotenuse, only using opposite adjacent this time. If you check our SOHCAHTOA, opposite adjacent is going to be tangent, TOA. So it's tangent 57 degrees. Tangent is O over A, so opposite is X, adjacent is 120. Okay, it's regular trig again, so we got to do our cross multiplying. So put it over 1 and circle. So X times 1 is in one group. That means it's on one side of the equation. 120 times tangent 57 is on the other. Since X is already by itself, just plug this in. Don't hit divide. It says multiply right there. If you multiply it properly, the answer should be 184.78 feet. It's not really specific about how to round it, so I just kept it as 2 decimal places. So I got the correct equation, and I solved my answer. So there's my final work. Okay? Double check if you need to rewind. If you're having trouble plugging into your calculator, let us know and we can help you.